Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy in Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. We're good people. We don't need no names. So what's up? What are we doing?
What happened to your opening?
I'm. They haven't really given us any good names since the election.
Oh, so
they shouldn't be able to ride on those past accomplishments.
Okay. I did have my webmaster. He said he was. He thought it was funny that I was turning the opening that we're doing the opening over to you. It's just so we had spent all this time. We have created this over years, and now now we're going to go back and say, what do we need to do? All right, so we'll have that kind of cold open and until you think about whether or not there's anything else that needs to go in there.
I'm sure they'll get around to something.
Yeah. I mean, I think look, we've had, what's today, the 5th. So we've had 16 days roughly of the administration. Their panties are in a twist or whatever. They're getting pretty steamed up. So it won't probably be a whole lot longer before we have a whole new list of things that we can open with then.
Yeah, and at this point they're so angry about so many things that it's kind of like they can't really talk. They're sort of that.
Yeah, and I thought it's been interesting because when I kind of pop around the internet a little bit just to see how many articles are being written about just the general disarray of the Democrat Party and what they're doing, and they keep thinking that maybe, Trump's done this, so this is an opening, or he's done that, that's an opening. But if it is, they're not really capitalizing on it.
And if you don't do it quick, it's not, I mean, think about this. Trump wiped out the DEI industry in toto just about a week and a half ago. No one talks about it anymore. It's like it was never there. Right? I mean, it's just moving so fast. I mean, that was a huge thing. And the day it happened, it was a huge thing. And now, when's the last time you heard anybody talk about the DEI people all getting fired? It's off the radar.
Yeah, right. Because things are moving fast. I mean, I think I've been referring to this as he's been throwing spaghetti against the wall, kind of see what sticks, and he is throwing and he's thrown a bunch of stuff up. He continues to throw a bunch of stuff up there. I'm convinced that this is that kind of bigger strategy of like, I'm going to just kind of go for broke. I'm going to put all these things out there. Some of these things are going to take root and take hold and actually get done. Others will just get the Democrats, the liberals, the lefties, all lathered up, and whatnot. But we're moving on. I mean, DEI, just like you said, DEI, boom. And we talked about this before where, prior to Trump taking office, we saw corporations starting to get in line, right? During the campaign, I mean, during this past year, how many companies started, have abandoned their ESG/DEI policies? Colleges and universities, which have been working on it, particularly in red states, they've been able to push things through. And in other states, I mean, there's still proposals out there, in state legislatures to say, no, your DEI office has got to close on campus and whatnot. Yeah. They're trying to circumvent it by calling it another thing. But it's clear that, if you're in the DEI field, you don't have a job. You don't have a place to go. I mean, I don't know. I mean, do they even, this is complete, I have no idea here. Can you even study DEI in school in the sense of college? I mean, if you're a DEI person at a corporation or whatever, what was your background to begin with?
Well, I've actually asked that question of a few people because I had some friends who lost their jobs over that. And one of them was business degree and one of them was a finance. And so it's sort of like a thing for people who didn't really get into their actual profession. It's a job that it needed to be done, right? It was a professional level job. But the other thing is like they're also going through and they're saying no affinity clubs. Like there was one that went out to West Point, cadets at West Point, like the Japanese club out, right? No more affinity by race clubs that have anything to do with the federal government. So I mean, no more Pride days, weeks, flags, none of that. All that wiped out in a week. It was a week and a half ago. No one even talks about it. It's just the way it is now.
Yeah, no, it's been amazing how fast these things have fallen into line. I mean, he goes out there, does that. The other side gets really just lit up about it, but it's basically taken hold, and we've now moved on to whatever the next thing is.
Yesterday there were 2 protests, right? And Trump has these guys like running around Washington trying to figure out which protest to go to, what thing they really matter about, right? So all it is it's the Democrats getting on camera, and it's the same ones, right? It's the camera hogs, Chris Murphy and Jasmine Crockett and Schumer, of course. They all go riding around Washington, chanting with the crowd and all this stuff. And it's like, their own people are looking at this and they're like, this is all we got. We're going to get smoked again, and they will. Then, all they have is Trump bad, and they can't even elucidate why. And now it's like, it's ridiculous claims. Like, they're going through, their Treasury department, right? And they're going through who actually gets the checks, right? Which should not be controversial at all. Like, for a new administration to come in and say, who are we paying and what are we paying them for? And are they still doing it? And do we still need it? Right. So, they're going, they're in Treasury. These 24-year-old guys are stealing all our money. They're not stealing your money. Right. That is one crime. That would be the worst crime in history, because it would be the easiest to catch. Right. Someone's going to go in and say, did these guys divert any money to themselves? Right. And then the answer is going to be no. It better be no. Meanwhile, they are finding, like, I guess you heard this morning, they found that the USAID was paying Politico for, media coverage favorable to Biden. A lot of money, millions of dollars. So, like, a lot of, Musk tweeted just a little while ago, he said, a lot of media companies are about to have their income slashed substantially because they're not going to be getting it from the government anymore.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I don't really have a problem with this. I mean, to talk about, the sensitive information, but the people that have been assigned to this are read only, right? That's read only access.
Yeah.
So all they can do is read the information and try and then figure it out from there. They can't go in there and they can't change anything. They can
they can't send themselves a check. Right. They can't raid your Social Security account or any of the other stuff that the Democrats are charging.
Yeah. And what, this is kind of thing that we want transparency in our government. This is always part of the problem, right? We never know where all these trillions of dollars are really going.
Yeah.
This government has expanded, to a ridiculous level that, where we have, what is a $6-7 trillion budget. It's like, what happened? I was thinking a few weeks ago, I'm like, when I kept hearing these numbers, I'm like, wait a minute. It's like, when did this happen? How did our government get to be to this point? The
answer to the question is there was none of this oversight, right? No one was looking to see, who got that check and what they did to earn it, and was that worthwhile? Was that a good deal for the American people, right? Especially the USAID, $50 million for condoms for Gaza. Like, they're not buying $50 million of condoms for Gaza, right? They're not. They're buying somebody, some else, somewhere, right? And they can say, oh, well, we need that for American security. Well, we have only your word for that, right? And your word is proven not to be all that reliable. Therefore, we're going to not spend it and see what happens. Let's see what happens if USAID is not throwing American taxpayer money all over the rest of the world. Let's just see. Maybe it ruins everything and we all die in a heap, a fiery heap or whatever, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really interested to see where this winds up going, because I mean, Musk wanted to cut. I mean, I think he just kind of pulled a number of what, 2 trillion to cut out of the budget, which is a large number, from our budget, and not easily done. I mean, Congress appropriates the money, and therefore, he has no authority to cut the funds, but he can, he can, he can publicize and expose where this money is going, and they need to have access to where the Treasury is cutting those checks, in essence, to really see, to kind of get down to the root of the thing. So yeah, as we look at each of these agencies, I can see, the bureaucrats, career bureaucrats, and others that are in a lot of these agencies, which have been, they've been growing over time. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and they just get more money accumulated to them. And now they're like, now they're going to be under scrutiny. It's like, I'm looking at this as really the potential, the first time we could have a chance to really start cutting in a significant way the size and scope of the government, and get to the small government that we want, and that will actually be better for all of us in the long run. So yeah,
it's really happening, and it's deeply upsetting to exactly one political party, right? I mean, I was thinking about this. Like in the last week, they've had to defend a slush fund, which is what USAID is, giving millions to Politico. The whole waste, fraud, and abuse, that's being uncovered every day by the Treasury, by Musk stuff from the Treasury Department. And they're out there arguing that, we should not find these things out, and we should not tell the American public, and we should not do a thing to fix them, right? That's their argument. That's all they have. So, yeah, there's a lot of ranting and raving, and, we will win and all this stuff, like Schumer said the other day. But, that's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, and they're throwing up a lot of illegal arguments about, what can and can't be done, or, and some of this may have to be adjudicated that way in a sense, but it does give the Republicans in Congress a chance to really start maybe swinging the axe like they should have been doing for a long time. And, and particularly, and they've got to work fast though, because, we've got, it's in less than 2 years here, there'll be another election, midterm election. They need to show, what they're doing here. If these guys want to keep their job and maybe expand the majority so they can finish the job, or at least get a good way through, before Trump leaves office, and pave the way for a J.D. Vance type of person, to maybe continue that whole run for up to another 8 years. So these are going to be important things that they get to do, and they need to do. Yeah, the USAID, it's, once again, it's Trump. I don't know that anybody really saw that coming. This is another just thing where he pulls this thing out and panic sets in. People are put on leave. Marco Rubio says, well, I'll be the acting head. It was part of the State Department at one point in time. Can it be rolled back into the State Department? Maybe that's the place.
Right, because that's one of their complaints is the USAID's attitude was, no one tells us what to do. We spend this money as we see fit, right? Because only we know all the players. Well, we don't do tax money like that. We don't do taxpayer dollars like that. We review all that here in Washington.
Yeah, no, I mean, if we actually start getting accountability for where the money is going and how it's being spent, that will be a tremendous, amount of progress that we have, because the average taxpayer, I mean, you and I don't really have a good idea of where this money's going,
right?
Right. I mean, and we hear stories. I mean, we get later on, we see how money's been spent, as far as like if someone does, like if say the Wall Street Journal, somebody does an investigative report and they go through FOIA documents or whatever, they start scouring things and they say, all right, so Joe Biden's, Inflation Reduction Act, where is this money really going? He was out there boasting about how just all this good for here and there, but where is it really going, and who's it really benefiting, and all of this.
But those stories, even as they're useful, but they're a microcosm. They're finding one little dot in the big matrix, right? And they're expanding on that. This is a look at the day to day how this actually works, right? And one of the things Musk has said is about 60 or 70% of it is autopilot. No one looks at all. They just print the check and mail it, and we can't do business like that anymore.
Yeah, and this is how fraud is perpetrated on the government, is because nobody checks. I mean, we had that whole thing, with all that COVID aid, right? We just
Hmm.
had just massive amounts of money that the government was just sending out to people who fraudulently filed claims, either under PPP or whatever, and took in all kinds of money, because we need this money to keep going, because of COVID and things like this, only to find out that they had falsified these records, and all this stuff, and created a whole little industry for people, calling and emailing businesses saying, "Oh, we can get you thousands of dollars, if you
Yeah.
apply for this aid." You know, it just annoys the heck out of me every time I see this kind of stuff. It's like, good, maybe Musk here on being on board will help stem that, or just end this flow of just money that is fraudulently out there going to people who are ripping off the government, over and over and over again. I mean,
Yeah.
y-
And the thing about it is like, they're the opposition's having a hard time wrapping their minds around this because, man, are you arguing for wasteful spending? I mean, that's what you're doing. You're protecting wasteful spending, and it's like like you say, like even people like you and me who keep up with this stuff don't have nearly this big a picture on it, right? And now that we do, it's easy for people who don't keep up with it at all to understand, oh wow, they're spending a lot of our money on stuff like this, right? They're wasting our money, right? Look at them waste our money. It's profound. It's terrible. It's sick, and it's all out there in the open, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. And they can't stop it, right? The time they get a court order or whatever, you're getting a court order to tell him not to audit the government. You're to tell the president he can't audit the government. It's like, excuse me, that one's not going to last. The other thing is, and I think both parties uh, uh, would be interested in doing this, right? But the power of these nationwide temporary injunctions, temporary restraining orders, right? So they go find some judge in Oregon who agrees with them on every little green initiative, and it's like, oh, nationwide order, no one can do this. It's like, no, if you nail this down in Oregon, then let's deal with, Oregon can't do it, but everybody else can do it, right? So I mean, that's got to be resolved because there's a lot of court shopping is abused by both sides and is bad for justice, bad for America.
Yeah, I mean, what I see here really in a sense is kind of what Citizens Against Government Waste and what Tom Coburn did, but on a much grander scale, with one that actually might have some effect.
Right.
I mean, I think what Citizens Against Government Waste, I think what Tom Coburn had done over the years was great about exposing it, but it really went nowhere, for
Right.
the most part, right? Now we're getting this kind of earth-shattering shake-up kind of a thing going on there, and where they're serious about it because they're digging into the Treasury, and they're
Right.
they've
Closing
already,
offices, sending people home.
yeah, they've already gone off and doing things. They've offered the buyouts to the federal workers, things that were just kind of unfathomable before, are happening, so you're seeing kind of real action take place, which is really good to see for us.
Mhm.
It's going to be a long time coming to reduce the federal budget by a significant amount, but I think we've got a great starting point here where Musk and company are just they're doing the best they can, take a hatchet to this, expose this, because as Americans, the more it's publicized, the more Americans learn about it. I think then they get a better understanding of why we need why we need this kind of reform. That Elon Musk isn't the bad guy that the liberals have made it out to be. The former darling of the liberals is now almost like the number one guy on their most wanted list because of how he's flipped on this and how much effect he's had here of dismantling their pet causes. As you said, they're defending all this wasteful spending. Yeah, you're right, Brian. I mean, that's exactly what they're doing, and let's call them out on the carpet for that, because what are they going to say?
We will win.
So it's just an interesting thing to see this turn of events. Trump 2.0 is something amazing to watch here.
Yeah,
I mean,
rapid, massively different from Trump 1.0.
yeah, very much so, very much so.
They're organized. They had a plan, and they're rolling that plan out.
Yeah, I think this time, to use sports analogies, this time they really had a game plan, and this is a
Yeah,
game plan that's working. Their coordinators, are great. I mean,
yeah,
whoever, how they set this up has really been pretty darn good.
yeah.
They've rattled the other side, and they've steamrolled the opposition, and we're seeing things that were like, wow, okay, we want another one. We want another one.
Yeah, and it's like now, like the networks are trying to get people Democrats to come on TV and criticize Musk, and they're like, "Oh, I'm busy that day," because it's Americans are looking at this and they keep saying, "Oh, our phone lines are breaking down." So many people calling. Half those people are calling saying, "Why did you let this waste happen? Right? Why did you let this go on? Why weren't you watching?" So I mean, they're really making a difference, and this is 2 weeks in. And I think one of the things that I need to do, and a lot of us need to do, is make a list of all the stuff that's happening, all the huge news that has happened in this 16 days. Right? I mean, this has been a wild, it's wild in terms of a lot of action, but a very disciplined, very planned out, very systematic way of turning over the tables of what's going on in the country.
Yeah, it's been amazing. So I'll switch gears for a little bit here for the latest thing that has made headlines with Trump, and that's the Middle East. And we now have a proposal, basically, to the Gaza Strip becoming the Riviera of the Middle East, and that is that's definitely turned the tables on a lot of things going on out there. I mean, I don't see a lot of opportunity for success here, but boy, I mean, that came out of nowhere for me. I'm like, what?
All right, so there, one thing is someone pointed out to me yesterday. Hamas is not dead. They're close. They're not. They're a long way from what they used to be, but they're not dead. So they'll get a vote, right? Or you'll have to go back and finish them off or whatever. Can Don Jr. be down there with a bullhorn and a hard hat, directing things on the ground in Gaza? No, probably not, right? But what Trump is doing is he's lining up investment for it, and the Saudis are interested, the Gulf, the Emirates are interested, a lot of the Arab world is interested because it could bring stability, right? You get the Iranian influence out of there and replace it with this big commercial hub, So I'm thinking, a couple of things I'm thinking about is one is, let's say this happens, right? And they build this Riviera, on the Dead Sea or whatever it is, right? So, is this place Saudi Arabia or is it Bahrain, right? I mean, are they going to do this and like have mosque and no drinking and all that? Or are they going to say this is Bahrain, this is where we all go to party? Nobody look, right? Hey, put that camera down, boy. That kind of thing, right? So they need to decide how they're going to work that, right? I think it will be a place of sin. I think they will agree to let sin occur there because it's more lucrative. I think what he's saying is, though, it is very significant, is that we're not just going to allow all these people to come back and start doing the same stuff they've been doing, since the 50s to Israel, right? We're not going to be back here, dealing with rockets and October 7th and all that kind of stuff anymore, right? We're dealing with this one time, and that time is now. So, I think that, he's going to put something there that's not the Palestinians, right? There's going to make some kind of thing that's not there. And most of what's there now is, it's rubble anyway. It's got to be removed. The buildings aren't stable. They would have to be, even if they're standing, they would have to be removed. So, I think, he's a construction guy, right? He removed the old, put in some good new, that's what he's done all his life. So I don't underestimate his chance to put this together, right? The thing that bugs me about it is it's much more than a 4-year project, right? If they started bidding on it today, and here's a map, here's where we're going to put everything, and here's how we're going to demolition everything, and like all we need is vendors. It just started the project today. It would not be done when he left office.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting idea. I mean, if you're going to do anything like this, probably now is the time because of this war that they've had. The Strip has really been decimated, and as you say, there's just a lot of rubble there. So there's stuff. I mean, just the clearing of that is an immense undertaking. You've got to clear that, and then just everything that you have to do to set this up. Also, the bidding, that takes time. Architectural design, that takes time. Finding the vendors, yes, that takes time. All of these things take a lot of time. This is not an overnight project, and it would outlast the Trump administration. But it's an interesting thing that he threw out there, because I think he just has caught people off guard, because I think the assumption is that Palestinians would just return to the Strip, and with a lesser presence of Hamas. But they haven't, since Israel hasn't extinguished Hamas yet, there's still a threat that this is still a war zone. I mean, it's still a problem for Israel and for anybody who lives in that vicinity. But if you turn it into a viable enterprise, an area that is something like the French Riviera, well, I mean, look at Trump. He thinks big, right?
Right.
I mean, the Middle East Riviera. I mean, it's like, who else but Donald Trump would think about a Middle East Riviera? It's just
right. That's right.
That's the last thing on my mind. I thought you would plunk down in Gaza, is something like that. But what's not going to happen anymore, and I don't know what'll ever get built or not built, right? But what's not going to happen is they're not going to sit within Israel bombing Israel every day, right? That's going to stop. Yeah, and if you're Netanyahu, you kind of getting behind, you kind of like the idea, because you're taking a place that has been very troublesome, and it's a threat, because of Hamas and their ability to bomb Israel, to say, oh, this is going to be a commercial spot, a hot spot, a tourist spot. They're not going to, you're just not going to see the terrorism there that's going on today. And that makes Israel more stable as well. So, I don't know. I mean, I can't, it's hard to imagine that this gets built at all, if anytime soon. But, then again, I have underestimated Donald Trump many a time.
Yeah.
So who the heck knows?
You're not the only one. I promise you that.
Yeah. Who the heck knows what can happen here? He's just, he continues to do these things that just,
it's not impossible. I mean,
no, it's not impossible. It's just,
and he's got a lot of outside people interested in doing it, right? It's not just, this was not the first mention of this, by anybody in the world. It's just been talked about for some time. You could tell. Yeah.
I mean, though, I guess, let me ask you this. I mean, I think what he's been saying was that the U.S. would take it over and do it. Do we want the U.S. to do this? I mean, the U.S. can help plan it or whatever.
Yeah, I think the U.S. is the backstop.
Yeah.
Right. We're going to make sure a thing happens, but we're probably not going to be who makes it happen.
Right. Yeah. So, because I don't think that our place is to actually say we own the Gaza, own and run that thing. So,
right. And I don't think we want troops there.
No, I don't think we do either. I don't just we should.
And I don't think that's what Trump is. I looked at his remarks. I saw a lot of people like, he's calling for troops, and so I went to look and see what he said. If he said anything about troops, and he didn't. He doesn't see that we will need to put U.S. troops there at this point.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. So we had the beginning of the week, Trump putting out tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and giving them a little bit of time, giving them about a day or so to get their act together. And they came to the negotiating table, and we've got about a month, reprieve on that. And I suspect that these things will fall into place, that Canada and Mexico, they don't want to get involved in a trade war, even though they were planning on retaliating. That's not something that's to their benefit at all. And that's why they came so quickly to try to settle matters and to meet Trump's demands as such.
Right.
China, they have there's a lesser tariff there, and they're looking at retaliation. But I think we can see. I was thinking this morning about, I don't know if there's been a president. There hasn't really. I'm sure there's been a president in my lifetime that's been able to use tariffs and leverage them like Donald Trump has.
Right.
No
one's even thought of it in our lifetime, right?
Yeah.
Because we started paying for it all ourselves, right? After World War II, and we just put a bunch of taxes on us and quit bothering the rest of the world with it. But it's time for the rest of the world to pay as they did before,
I mean, I think Trump. I think I've said this before too. I think Trump has kind of changed my mind about how to use tariffs, and that they can be a force, for good for us. That rather than having the general opinion, which I think Republicans have held for a long time, is that no, use as few tariffs as possible with our trading partners.
The article of faith with a lot of them, and oh no,
right.
That's interventionist and socialist, and
right.
It's just another tool, and it's not the bad word that these people have been grown up taught to know that it is. And the reason that it works, the particular countries involved, right, is they're all trying to sell stuff to us, but they all have protectionist economies themselves that don't let a lot of our products in already. Like, I don't really care, China refuses to buy whatever it's refusing to buy from us, right? Because they don't buy much from us. They sell a lot of stuff to us. So it's the same thing with, Mexico. They sell things to us. They don't really buy any, we don't, they won't let us into their markets for most stuff. Canada, even worse. Canada, 300% tariff on eggs, 235% tariff on milk, So, I mean, they do that, and then it's like we're supposed to just open market to them, right? Which is what we've been doing since NAFTA, and no more. Trump's saying we're going to get a trade deal that works for all of us.
Yeah, I mean, is there really any country that has pure free trade? I mean, without tariffs and things like that. I mean, I think.
Singapore, those guys get pretty close. Singapore, Hong Kong did before the Chinese stuck their fingers in it. But there's a few out there that try to be pretty purist about it. But it's almost all of them are like that. They're nation states where there's not a lot of competing interests and strongman rulers. So there's not a lot of argument about it. And they bring it, attract a lot of capital like that. But I mean, it's not a thing. You're not debating the impact on the welfare of the country.
So, like when we had NAFTA, I mean, the North, it wasn't really that we were getting to pure free trade, but it was trying to get as close to that as they could with tariffs that would still remain in place.
Well, I mean, NAFTA was, we're trading as a block. They want, sort of the rest of the world looks at us from a trade standpoint as one entity, us, Mexico, Canada. And then, and we remove the obstacles to trading with each other in theory. It's not actually what happened, but that's what the design was.
Yeah. And that's this kind of thing. It's like, in theory, there's some things that we try to do. In practice, it doesn't always happen. Right.
Right. And one of the things that's going on right now, all over government, all over the country is, theory and practice are they're either being brought into alignment or they're being rejected,
Yeah. So this is, I don't know. I mean, all that, fuss, really rattled the stock market earlier this week. But they're
now? It's back where it was, right?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, they're just nervous about a lot of things because there's a lot of volatility in the market. As I've watched this more and more, like, your corporate earnings, if you miss by just a smidgen, you can get just taken down big time. There'll be a huge haircut on your stock price. And that's not like the old days, before you could miss a little bit and you would lose your market value would go down a little bit, but you miss by a little bit, you lose a lot.
Yeah.
Or even the case of the whole thing with Chinese with DeepSeek, right? DeepSeek comes on there and it rattled the chip market. So Nvidia, where they had become the most valuable company in the world, also in one day lost more market value than any company in history in one day as a result of DeepSeek. But this is where because you get the rationality of the stock market, in terms of reacting to things like that. Nobody really knows, what DeepSeek is and can do. It's just a very kind of suspicious type of thing like that that they really build an AI model, that much cheaper than anybody else could, and things like this. I think the journal had written up about, I think there are about eight or nine other AI, outfits out there that are running around that are Chinese based. I'm thinking like, yeah, look, there's a bunch of these things in China, and they're looking for our data.
Right.
I mean, especially if DeepSeek, was basically using, open AI or something like that to scrape and to learn to create to learn what it needed to learn to create its model. This is not some great discovery. So I kind of looked at DeepSeek. It's like, yeah, I don't know. It just seems like yet another, opportunity maybe by the Chinese, to do who knows what. Because if there's one thing I'm suspicious of, it's the Chinese at this point. I don't trust them at all.
No.
And the more time goes along, the less I trust them. So this kind of a thing. AI, I don't know. I mean, I don't use it. I've toyed with it a little bit, but it's just like I think I'm too old to really focus in on it at this point. And it's like I haven't even tried to say, hey, Chat GPT, write me an article on this. I haven't really tried that. And it's like, no, I think I'll just write the article myself.
Yeah, see, that's me. It's like it's probably quicker to write it than to ask for it to make the request. This is exactly what I want it to be.
Well, yeah, because then you're going. Then even if it writes something, you're still going to have to go over it and see if it actually is correct. Is it factual? Is it in the language? Does it actually make any sense and things like that? I know people are using it right and left to do a lot of things, but I don't know. I don't know how many journalism jobs it's taken away but I know that's it's been poking up that you see a lot of these kind of automated things going on. I know in the financial sector there's a lot of like little press reports and releases that that you see. It's like, yeah, this is, and they notate it was AI generated, and you can tell when you read it that it was definitely very machine like. There's no feeling to it, and you could tell it's not written the way something normally would be written for that purpose. So another
It's
thing,
not a passive voice. I mean, some good grammar teacher needs to kick their butt and make that thing a lot tighter.
And still
the writing is not tight. It's kind of sloppy and airy.
Right, and it's still young, and reason we have so many AI models out there is because they kind of do different things. They don't give you results in the same fashion. Some are more programmed to do XYZ, while other ones are doing ABC. And that's why people will use multiple AI engines, because they don't all do the same thing. They don't bring back the same results. And here we go.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean,
that's right.
I mean, you think
what is it? I think we're about 90% of the products that were invented last year. I mean, the products that we bought last year did not exist 5 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, for John, is he talking to about it? Is that an influence of AI that is helping push this along, or just also, the internet and inventiveness, all these other kinds of things, robotic things that
AI is just one of its products.
yeah, I think that. Yeah, I mean, we have seen kind of a rapid acceleration of things. Yeah, we still haven't gotten to the paperless society quite yet, but maybe that
Well,
is
we're getting
3D.
close.
Yeah, maybe that.
I mean, when's the last time you have this big problem because there's some stuff that like you need cash for. I haven't had cash in months. Right? I don't need cash.
I have a $5 bill in my wallet, and I've had that $5 bill in my wallet for I don't know how long, but that's all I've had. I haven't spent it. I haven't added to it, or anything like that, because everything I do is done pretty much electronically. Either my bills are being paid, to the utility company by, automatic withdrawal, or if somebody wants something, maybe I'm doing a Venmo or something like that. My son owes me money for the Tesla, the used Tesla that he bought. So he basically Zells me the money every month to repay that. There are no checks that are going back and forth between me and my kids or anything like that.
Yeah.
It's all just done electronically. If I'm giving gifts to my grandchildren, my daughter was saying, just send me gift cards to Target and I'll take them shopping. This year I bought physical gift cards because we were going to be out. We were going to be there for a birth of a new grandson in January. So we thought, okay, well, let's do this. We're going to take them shopping using the gift cards, and we'll be kind of Christmas/birthday for a couple of them, that had birthdays in December and January. But we get a chance to actually be a part of all that.
Yeah.
So this is what he's saying. All things. Okay.
Yeah.
He's still awake even after all this. Thank you for watching. All right. So besides that, we have the Panama Canal, which also created somewhat of a kerfuffle. But it looks like Marco Rubio has had some success here.
Yeah. And he's carrying that big stick called Donald Trump, right? But he has, had the Panamanians, they were letting the Chinese regulate who went in and out, what everybody was charged and so forth. And the U.S. called them out on it, and they have backed down, and they're going to redo it without the Chinese. Hey, yeah, I got it.
Oh, it's not gone. It's just AI.
AI. So, it got straightened out. It's like a visit and, some persuasion of the type we're now using, and that's been taken care of.
So, what I find interesting about the Panama Canal is just that I don't know if you ever had dealings with Richard Delgado before.
I know who he is. Yeah.
Okay. So among the things that Richard has done in his career was put up a big fight against giving away the Panama Canal. He made this one of his fundraising issues. I mean, he was good at fundraising for things like this. And there was a older gentleman, I think he was a retired Coast Guard captain or something. I don't remember the exact details of his military service, but he was G. Russell Evans was his name, and he wrote a book. And I think he wrote that book because of Richard's help, financing it or something like that. And it was about giving away the Panama Canal. And G. Russell Evans would speak about this at virtually any event that Delgado put on. Like, if Richard put on some separate things at CPAC, G. Russell Evans is usually one of his speakers at one of his events, and things like that. And so my mind goes way back in time to that, and I'm thinking like, G. Russell Evans is long gone from this world, but I'm like, wow, if he was here to this day, he'd be on the sidelines. He'd be like, go, go, go.
Yeah.
And just talking about, hey, see, I was right.
That's right.
About this. I mean, and if the Trump administration hasn't seen or know of his book, somebody probably ought to just grab that as extra reference for them, as well, because most people, as I recall back then, they were kind of like, they kind of gave up. They just went ahead and let the handover occur while G. Russell Evans and Richard and these guys carried on what was kind of a quixotic, quest to say, don't do this. This is a
Yeah.
bad thing. So interesting to see how this is happening.
It's
Nearly what?
American weakness. I mean, when we're weak, we're really weak. And when we're strong, we're really strong. And we were really weak at that point.
Yeah, but it also makes me feel old because we're talking about things that happened almost 3 decades ago, and how many?
No, back in the 70s.
Almost 5 decades ago. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'm really old. I mean, it started. It was a process, and everything like that. But it's like, was it? It's amazing to see. It's like, wait a minute. He's like, I'll be 66 this year. I was still a youngin', when all this stuff was going on there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy cow. I mean, what have I lived through? What have I seen in my life? Now I'm one of those old geezers who can talk about, I remember the day when candy was a nickel, and it's like, what happened to my life? All right. So, as I posed last week, I wasn't sure about what the chances were of RFK, Jr. getting confirmed, but he made it through the committee. His nomination got advanced.
Made through two now.
He and Gabbard now have, I think, a pretty good shot now. I think that getting through that committee was the key point there, and now they got to make sure they got the votes, with the whole body there to get it done. But it seems, at least on the face of it, that the Republicans have kind of come around. Has anybody come out there and said they weren't voting for him? I mean, have you seen it? I didn't look for it, so I didn't know.
RFK.
Yeah.
No, I think Murkowski, but I think she makes an excuse not to vote for any of it. What's really been funny though is like Patty Murray writes a tweet every time there's a Trump nominee goes through, right? And she says, I didn't vote for him, and here's why. And it's like, if you're no on all of them, you're just a hack, right? You're not really thinking about this. And the reasons are all like, stupid stacked on top of stupid. And, he wouldn't answer the question, what question, So, one of their big things was, do you think that Trump lost the election in 2020? That's like their gotcha question. Mazie Hirano asked that of everybody who comes before. And they're all like, and I like, my favorite answer was, they have a questionnaire they send around to, a written questionnaire. And Russ Vaught on his, do you think, it asks like about the 2020 election. He goes, I believe the 2020 election was rigged. There it is. Right. But I mean, that all that has lost its power to sting to the extent it ever really had it. Right. I think that they really thought they had a hot political issue that they could exploit for years or even decades there. And it never really measured up. It never really cost us an election. And it's even worse now. It even looks dumber now. It looks like you're hollering about something, it's like the Democrats formed the Klan. We should not ever vote for the Democrats. Like, there's a lot of good reason to not vote for the Democrats, but they formed the Klan a long time ago. And all the people that were responsible for the Democrats forming the Klan are dead now, right? You can't hold that against Chuck Schumer, but that's what they're attempting to do.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's 2025. Okay.
Yeah, it's over, but they're still trapped in it, and they're still trapped in all the criticisms that go along with that, right? And so, when American people look at them, they're like, they see somebody who's hashing out arguments that are not relevant to them anymore.
Yeah, I mean, as the more time passes by, the less effect, the stolen election idea is like, they want to get him. They want him on record. Do you believe that election? Did he win that election? Was it stolen election? Or a J6 question and things like that. The further you go along here, I mean, in time, this is, who cares? I don't see what the relevance is of that to serving in the cabinet at this point in time, right?
Right.
Please tell me what is the connection between do you believe that the election was rigged or whatever against Donald Trump in 2020 versus what your job is going to be for the next 4 years? I don't
Right.
understand that. I mean, please, highlight that for me. And you're right. Yeah, are they hacks? Yeah, yeah. When it's just automatically spitting out, it's almost like John saying AI. It's almost like you're having an AI response. What is the
Yeah.
response? Here's the response to why I didn't vote for this person, because
Right.
it's just a variation on a theme. You didn't even think it out. It is
Right.
just you never planned to vote for any of these people at all anyway. And that's what we're seeing. I mean, I think the Bondi one, right? What was it,
Yeah.
54-46,
Yeah.
right? So you're going to see those kinds of votes. I mean,
But she did
RFK,
get Fetterman at least, maybe one
yeah,
more Democrat.
right,
But
because
most of them are pretty close to straight party line votes.
right. So, but you'll see, this. I mean, RFK, if he maybe he gets by at 52 or 51 or whatever it is, who knows? But this is those kind of things that that you have kind of your usual suspects, and the Democrats, they're not going to vote for these people. I mean, yet Fetterman is the one guy who's kind of the reasonable guy in the room for the
Yeah.
Democrats. He's like the most reasonable Democrat we've known.
Yeah.
It's just, and that wasn't the way we felt about him when he got elected.
Right. I thought it was going to be hardcore the other way, but he's
Yeah,
he's been a pretty sensible guy.
yeah, which has not made the Democrats happy.
Right.
And
And they don't have, and these things about is like, what kills me though the most is like Murkowski, Susan Collins. They can sit there and they can vote for Levine, right? The dude who dressed up like a woman, but they can't find it in themselves to vote for Pete Hegseth or whoever, right? It's like, you're doing a thing. Just admit that you're obstructing for the sake of obstructing. But I mean, someone must have read the right act to them too, because they have tamped down their troublemaking a lot lately. And Colin still has to give her drama queen speech at the end of these. I've talked to him and thought deeply and researched significantly, and after much soul searching, I have decided that I can bring myself to vote for this, perfectly normal nominee of your own freaking party, right? So,
and the media loves her and Murkowski.
yeah.
They love these rebellious Republicans, right?
Yeah.
They've
And it's
stood up
like
for their
yesterday.
principles.
So I guess Cassidy flipped, right? And that was a big vote for him for Kennedy on the committee, was that Cassidy flipped. And they're all like, he lacks courage. He lacks courage. It's like, why isn't it courageous to vote for him? That seems like the hard vote seems to be for Kennedy. You're taking a chance on a pretty much of kind of a wild card guy. Some really strong feelings about this. Most of the time, and they'll say like Kennedy's not totally unqualified. What does he know about medicine? The guy, who had it before? Who Biden's HHS guy was? Javier Becerra. Javier Becerra went to college, a public college in California. When he got out of college, he went to work for the California state legislature. He got elected as delegate. He got elected as a member of the House of Representatives, and he got chosen by Biden to run HHS. There's no medical background in there whatsoever. So he's a lawyer, right? That's okay. And lawyers and politicians, if you look back to the people who've been HHS, Cap Weinberger, let's see, who is it? Haldeman, right? H.R. Haldeman, right? So it's been Kathleen Sebelius. She was governor of Kansas, right? It's politicians. It's somebody who's, not in office, or their term expired, or they lost, or whatever, and they elevate him into this job. But RFK, he doesn't have a medical background. It's like, you don't need a medical background. None of the other people did. You didn't balk at them at all, right? It's just hypocrisy from the get-go, and it's old. It's tired.
Yeah, I mean, we've known forever that, I mean, the cabinet appointees, or a lot of it is political payback. It's a reward for something that they've done, or if they did get term limited out, or they lost a tough election or whatever, but they were loyal to the president, the new president. He would try to find a spot for them in the administration. So none of that. I've never really worried about those kinds of things. And we saw with Biden administration, it was just that wild mix of DEI people. It was just the craziest. That had to be the craziest cabinet I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
But you're right about the Collins thing too, though, because the Republicans have this long history, I think, of they generally will support a lot of the Democrat nominees,
Right.
right, and they will go ahead and do that, and they don't stick to party line. And yet, when it comes to the Democrats supporting Republicans, it doesn't really happen very
Doesn't
often.
really happen.
Yeah, the only time it will happen, in general, is if the nominee was a senator, was a former senator or something like that.
Right.
Exception would be someone like John Tower or whatever.
Yeah.
But in
But
general,
that was because they knew he was a drunk, right?
yeah,
The senators knew he was a bad
they had
idea.
inside information.
That's right.
So when that's about, if you want kind of an overwhelming vote to be confirmed as a cabinet nominee, then you pretty much need to be a sitting or former senator in order to have a shot at getting that. Otherwise, with the Democrats, they're sitting home, and saying we're voting against this person no matter what, for the most part. There are very few crossovers, where they flip like that. So I'll give Fetterman credit where credit is due for that. He deserves praise for what he's been doing there. All right, last thing I'll just touch on here is what Pete Hegseth, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon, has done with the media. They've told several media outlets to, they have to leave their offices at the Pentagon and give them up to others. This is going to be part of apparently a rotating program, but it was the New York Times, Politico,
CBS, Politico,
NPR, and NBC News, I think.
Yeah, NBC,
so they're gone, and they're being replaced by New York Post, One American News,
Breitbart,
and then HuffPost, which is interesting because HuffPost is they're not exactly pro MAGA, but they also don't have a Pentagon correspondent either. So,
so maybe someone could borrow theirs.
Maybe somebody just didn't see that. I don't know.
But I mean, it's also them trying to give one to the left, right?
Yeah, right. So it's not an overwhelming MAGA thing or Republican thing, right?
It's 7 out of 8, but we moved off 4 bad guys, put in 3 good guys, but it's not all MAGA. but you know what? It's the same thing with White House press briefings, right? They have said we're letting in a lot more people, and we're not. The White House Correspondents Association doesn't have any power in deciding who comes in anymore, which I think both of those are positive moves. The legacy media does not hold the place in delivering information to Americans that it used to have, right? The prominent place anymore. At this point, they're just one of many, purveyors of stuff that, lots of people do it better than them. So they should not dominate all the questioning and all the space and all the offices and all that stuff, right? He's quite right. The media field has changed, and it changed a lot because of the actions of those people in that room. So, they made this bed and they can lay in it.
Yeah, and I think this had its genesis really with the first Trump administration, where they really shook up the White House press corps. The whole White House briefing, that was a little sloppy at times and a little chaotic. I think this version of what they're doing in the White House is much better, but it's also made it something that where the media has seen this. I mean, they've kind of seen this little before, so it shouldn't be a huge shock, for them to have this happen at the Pentagon. I'd love this. I mean, I think this is a great thing. This is, let others have a voice, and not just, no more Helen Thomas's with her, her dedicated seat all the time type of thing, right? In the White House. Those are things that really shook them up before, and I think this is where the Trump administration is just changing the norms.
Right. It shouldn't have been that way. Should not have been that dominated by the left. But we didn't do anything about it, so they filled the vacuum, and now we're pushing back.
All right, Brian, let's take us out.
Trump's going to the Super Bowl. That will be the all-time security challenge. Just going to say, I think that I think it's great that Trump is making them. CBS produced the whole Kamala interview, right, to just show how they manipulated the news. I'm not sure about the legal basis for doing it, but I'm glad that it's happening. What else is on here? Yeah, lots of buyouts. A lot of people are taking the buyouts. I guess there's another day or so to decide. They've offered the entire CIA the chance to take a buyout. I think, a lot of these things you kind of can't, because like, what else would a CIA agent do? What else would a lot of these DEI corners, like you were saying, what are they going to do? So it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think it's a good idea. We need a fresh look at a lot of this stuff.
All right. I just one final thing about the CBS thing that you mentioned there too, which is that the powers that be are thinking about settling with Trump, right? If he does that, that's the third settlement he'll have had on this. And their part of their concern is that they have a merger that's going before Trump's FCC, right?
Yeah.
So they want to make sure that things are all right with them. So that could be a factor in this. But I mean, that would be amazing. I mean, say CBS settles for $10 million or whatever. I mean, yet this is something that just yet another victory, which will just make the liberals' heads spin.
Yeah, Trump's going to have one heck of a presidential library. That's all I got to
say. He's rewritten the rules. How do you fund a presidential library? Sue.
Sue the networks.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed it. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.